The snow didn't fall that night. It descended heavy and soundless, like a curtain closing on the world. Somewhere beyond the empty fields of Hollow Creek, a radio crackled with a child's sob. Officer Daniel Crow had heard a lot of things in his years on duty: gunshots, confessions, final breaths, but never a cry so small, so broken. It sounded like it had nowhere left to go. By dawn, that cry would lead him through the storm to a wounded dog and a little girl whose whispered words would tear open the quiet heart of the town. The storm had eaten the town whole. Snow fell in thick, endless sheets, blurring the world into white and silence. The only sound left was a wind howling through the pines and the distant, broken whimper of something in pain. Officer Daniel Crow leaned against the hood of his cruiser, breath fogging the glass, eyes scanning the empty county road. His radio crackled again, dispatch barely cutting through the static. Unit 3, we got a 911 call. Open line, child crying. No voice contact. Location ping shows near Hollow Creek Road. He frowned. Hollow Creek was supposed to be abandoned. All forest, no houses. Daniel turned the ignition, wipers dragging across the windshield with a tired squeal. He'd been on shift 16 hours already, running on black coffee and the ache of December memories. His wife had stopped calling 2 weeks ago. He couldn't blame her. Some ghosts you bring home with you. The cruiser crawled forward, tires crunching through the snow, headlights slicing through the pale blur. The forest closed in, skeletal trees bending under the weight of ice. His K-9 partner, Ranger, whined from the back seat, alert. Then Daniel saw it, a flicker of movement by the roadside. At first, it looked like debris, but when he stopped and stepped out, flashlight in hand, he froze. A little girl, no older than 7, knelt in the snow beside a wounded dog. Her small hands trembled as she tried to cover its bleeding side with her red scarf. Snowflakes clung to her dark hair like shards of glass. Hey there, sweetheart. Daniel called softly, crouching low. It's okay. I'm with the police. You're safe. The girl didn't look up. She just kept whispering something, over and over, to the dog, her breath fogging against his fur. Daniel edged closer. The dog, a golden retriever with a mangled leg, gave a weak growl but didn't move. Its eyes were dull, desperate. The girl's tiny arms wrapped tighter around it as if protecting it from him. He didn't mean to hurt him, she murmured. Please don't take him away like my daddy. Daniel's chest tightened. What's your name, honey? No answer. Only the soft sound of her sobbing as the dog whimpered again. He switched off the flashlight to ease the tension, letting the moonlight take over. The storm had calmed slightly, enough for him to see her face. Pale, scratched, but familiar. He'd seen her somewhere before. Then it hit him. A missing persons flyer from 2 nights ago. Lily Whitaker, age 7, reported missing after a domestic disturbance. Daniel's pulse kicked. He pressed the radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 3. I found the Whitaker girl. She's alive, but... A sudden crack of static cut him off. Then nothing. The radio went dead. He looked back toward the girl. Lily, he said quietly, we need to get you and your friend out of cold, okay? I can help him. But we need to move. She finally looked up. Her eyes were glassy, red from crying. If we leave, she said softly, he'll find us again. Daniel froze. Who? The girl didn't answer. She pressed her face against the dog's fur, whispering something only the animal could hear. Ranger barked suddenly from the cruiser, low, anxious. The kind of bark that meant someone else was close. Daniel scanned the tree line. The wind had died, but the silence was worse. Every shadow looked alive. He reached for his flashlight again. But before he could turn on, something glinted in the snow behind the girl. A trail of footprints, adult-sized, leading from the woods to where she knelt and then back again. Whoever had brought her here wasn't gone long. Daniel's throat went dry. Lily, he said carefully, was your daddy with you? The girl slowly nodded. He said we were going home, but the dog ran in front of the truck. Daddy got mad. Then she swallowed hard. Then Daddy didn't wake up. Her words were small, cracked, lost somewhere between guilt and terror. Daniel felt the wind shift. A metallic scent drifted through the air. Blood, not just from the dog. He followed the prints with his flashlight. They led about 20 feet into the trees and stopped near a shape half buried in snow. He stepped closer. The beam caught the edge of a denim jacket. An arm twisted at an unnatural angle. The man was face down, the snow around him stained black-red. No movement. But when Daniel knelt and brushed snow from his neck, he saw the faint rise of breath. Barely alive. "Jesus," Daniel whispered. "Dispatch, come on." The radio was still dead. He looked back toward the girl. But she was already standing, her small figure framed by the cruiser lights. "He's not bad," she said softly. "He just gets sick. Mommy said it's not his fault." Daniel's mind spun. Sick? He glanced again at the man. Bloodshot eyes fluttered open for a moment. Catching the beam, he tried to speak, his lips trembling. "Don't let her go back." Then his head dropped into the snow. Daniel turned toward Lily, heart hammering. "We need to go. Now." But she didn't move. She was staring past him, into the dark woods behind the man. Daniel followed her gaze. At first, he saw nothing. Then, a faint movement between the trees. Something walking upright. Slow. Deliberate. He raised his flashlight, but the beam caught only snow and branches. Ranger barked again, sharper, louder. Daniel grabbed Lily, wrapping his coat around her, and hurried her into the cruiser. The dog was lifted carefully into the back beside Ranger, who immediately nuzzled its neck, as if sensing its pain. The girl shivered, still watching the tree line through the window. "He's angry," she whispered, "because I told the dog his secret." Daniel's blood went cold. "What secret, Lily?" The girl turned her head toward him, eyes wet but steady. "He said the bad man inside him doesn't like the light." Daniel's hands froze on the steering wheel. He looked at her reflection in the mirror, a child broken by something she couldn't explain. Then, faintly through the radio static, a voice cracked through. "Unit 3, if you have the Whitaker girl, be advised, father confirmed deceased. Body found earlier this evening at his property." Daniel's grip tightened. He stared at the child. She was still whispering to the wounded dog, rocking it gently. "You can rest now," she said softly. "He won't hurt us anymore." Outside, in the trees, something moved again. A quiet request. If stories like this reach you, move you, or make you think, stay close. It means more than you think. The cruiser's heater barely kept the chill at bay. Daniel kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting lightly on Lily's shoulder. She sat in the back seat, wrapped in his coat, still clutching the wounded retriever like it was the last thing keeping her alive. Ranger sat beside her, silent now, ears twitching, eyes fixed toward the tree they had just left behind. The storm had eased to a whisper, but the air inside the cruiser felt heavy, loaded with questions Daniel wasn't ready to ask. He glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. Her dark eyes were glassy, fixed somewhere beyond the glass. "Lily," he started quietly, but she shook her head. She didn't speak. Not yet. The warmth from the heater was swallowed by an icy thought. Hollow Creek didn't just suffer storms. It harbored secrets. Old ones. Dangerous ones. The Hollow Creek station. By the time Daniel arrived at Hollow Creek Police Station, dawn had bled pale into the sky. The station smelled of coffee and paper. Sergeant Miles Hendricks was already at the desk, eyes narrowed, coffee cup trembling in his hands. "You got her?" he said without looking up. His voice was low, rough with suspicion. Daniel nodded, gesturing toward the back seat of the cruiser. Miles's face darkened. "Lily Whitaker, you found her?" Daniel nodded again. She was with a wounded dog, near the old creek road. There was a man. Whitaker. Miles cut him off sharply. "He's been dead for 2 days. Found on his property. Body's bad." Daniel's jaw tightened. "He was alive when I found him." Miles leaned back, rubbing his beard. "Then you got more than a missing child on your hands." Daniel looked toward the back seat. Lily was asleep now, her head resting against the dog's side, but her fingers gripped his coat, as if holding on to something only she could understand. Miles sighed heavily. "We'll get her checked at the station. See what she'll say when she wakes." But, Crow, Hollow Creek doesn't like to spill its blood freely. You know that. Daniel nodded silently. But deep inside, something had shifted. Lily's words, "he'll find us again," replayed in his mind like a warning. Lily's silence. In the interrogation room, Lily sat wrapped in a blanket, the wounded dog lying curled at her feet. An officer brought her a cup of warm milk. She took it without looking up, her eyes still clouded in thought. Daniel sat across from her. "Lily, I need you to tell me what happened. Everything." She shook her head, whispering instead to the dog, "Don't wake him." Daniel's stomach tightened. "Who, Lily? Who shouldn't wake up?" Her eyes rose slowly to his. For a moment, they held nothing but fear. Then she said something so soft it almost vanished. "The man inside my daddy." That sentence hung between them, colder than the snow outside. Daniel leaned forward. "What does that mean?" She looked away. "He tells me secrets. He says things I'm not supposed to tell." Daniel's mind raced. Secrets? Things she isn't supposed to tell? There was more here than an accident. There was something darker. The wounded man. Meanwhile, in the station's backlot, a nurse moved slowly toward a cruiser with a stretcher. Daniel followed. The man's body was half covered with blankets, snow still clinging to his boots and jacket. His breathing was faint but steady. Daniel glanced at Miles, who shook his head. The man's lips moved. No words. Only a whisper that Daniel caught through the wind and snow. "She knows. She knows the truth." Before Daniel could ask more, the man's eyes rolled back. The nurse signaled for immediate care, and the stretcher was whisked inside. Daniel stared after it. That whisper, those words, they were the key to something buried deeper than Hollow Creek snow. Something dangerous enough to explain why Lily was out there, in the storm, hugging a dying dog. The first betrayal. Back inside the station, Daniel sat at his desk, the folder of Lily's case open before him. Photos of the missing girl, reports of her father's death, witness statements. Nothing matched the reality he'd found. The footprints. The man alive. Lily's words. Miles approached quietly. "You didn't tell me about the footprints." "I thought you should hear it from me first," Daniel said. Miles leaned on the desk. "This town, it thrives on lies, Crow. You can't just drag the truth out without consequences." Daniel closed the folder. "Then maybe it's time someone did." Miles's face hardened. "Be careful. You're not just dealing with a missing child anymore. You're tangled in something far older and far worse. Lily Whitaker knows more than she can tell. And whoever killed her father knows it too." Daniel felt a chill deeper than the winter air. Lily had whispered something to him earlier, a secret that was buried in blood and snow. Something she wouldn't speak aloud. Outside, the wind picked up again. The station windows rattled. Ranger let out a low growl. Daniel looked toward the tree-line. Somewhere in that silence, something was moving, and Lily was still whispering to her wounded dog, "He'll find us again." The station was quiet except for the soft hum of fluorescent lights. Daniel sat in his cruiser outside, the heater running, the wounded dog resting in the back seat beside Ranger. Lily was asleep in the waiting room, wrapped in blankets, but her stillness felt unnatural, like she was holding herself in place against something she didn't want to let go. Daniel's phone buzzed. A call from dispatch. "Unit 3, you need to clear the station now. Sergeant Hendricks wants all officers on Hollow Creek Road." Daniel frowned. "Why?" The dispatcher hesitated. "You should know. There's been another incident." Daniel's stomach tightened. He stepped into the station. Miles was already gathering his coat, the faint tension in his face sharper than before. "Tell me what's happening," Daniel said. Miles didn't look at him. "You don't want to hear this." But Daniel did. He had to, especially now. Secrets in the woods. They drove toward Hollow Creek Road in silence. Snow swirled around their headlights like drifting ash. Daniel's mind kept replaying Lily's words. "He'll find us again." He couldn't shake them. When they arrived, a group of officers were already cordoning off a section of woods. Flashlights pierced the snow. Ranger growled low. "Over here," Miles said, pointing. They followed the line of officers to a clearing where the snow had been disturbed. At the center lay footprints, dozens of them, leading in circles around something buried beneath a heavy tarp. Daniel knelt. The snow was packed, as if something large had been dragged. Beneath the tarp, the outline of an object was visible. A body? Miles stepped closer. This is where her father was taken. Lily didn't just find him. She was following the path he was dragged. Daniel looked up at Miles. Why? Who? Before Miles could answer, Lily appeared behind them, holding the dog. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. He's here, she whispered. Daniel froze. Who? The bad man, she said softly. He lives under the snow. Her words made Daniel shiver. Miles stepped forward. Lily, that's enough. Come with us. She shook her head. No, he'll kill us. The hidden truth. Daniel crouched beside her. Lily, I need to know the truth. Everything. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. The man inside my daddy, he wasn't human. He came from under the ice. He told Daddy to hide something. Something in the woods. He said it had to stay buried. Daniel blinked. What did he mean? She swallowed hard. The bad man, he told Daddy he would come back for me if the secret was found. That's why Daddy ran. That's why he left the blood. A chill passed through Daniel. Ranger growled again, low and dangerous. Miles stepped closer. This is sounding like a child's nightmare. Lily's voice was steady. It's real. He's still here. Daniel looked at the tarp. Underneath was the unmistakable shape of her father, battered, broken, but breathing. His eyes fluttered open and locked on Lily. His lips moved. She knows. Then his body shuddered violently. He went still. Daniel swallowed hard. We need medical now. The betrayal. The officers moved quickly. The stretcher was brought in. Lily's father lifted and carried toward the ambulance. But Daniel noticed something strange. Miles's hand lingered on the tarp for a moment too long before turning away. Back in the station, Daniel confronted Miles. What aren't you telling me? Miles's face hardened. This town has a history, Crow. Hollow Creek isn't just snow and silence. It's a place people bury things they can't explain. Her father knew too much. That's why he died. And that's why Lily is in danger. Daniel's heart pounded. You mean the thing she said? The bad man? Miles nodded grimly. He's real. And if she told anyone they'd come for her. Daniel stared at him. You knew? Miles turned away. Some truths aren't for the living. The shattering. That night, Daniel stayed in the cruiser. Ranger lay beside him. Lily asleep in the back seat. The wounded dog curled between them. Daniel thought of the footprints, the whispers, the man under the tarp, and of Lily's voice. So small, so broken. He'll find us again. In the darkness, Daniel heard something move in the woods. Not wind, not animal. Something heavier, something deliberate. He stepped out of the cruiser. Ranger followed. The snow crunched underfoot. Lily stirred behind him. Then she spoke again quietly. It's time, you know, officer. He's not just in the woods anymore. Daniel turned. She was looking past him toward the trees, and there, standing at the edge of the clearing, was a figure taller than any man, shrouded in snow and shadow, watching them. Daniel's breath caught. Ranger growled, the sound deep and warning. Lily clutched the dog tighter. The figure took a slow step forward. Then another. The snow swallowed their sound, and the world fell silent. Epilogue, quiet in the snow. Weeks later, the town of Hollow Creek said the storm had passed. The missing girl was safe. The dog healed. The body of her father laid to rest. But Daniel knew better. Somewhere in the woods, something waited, something patient, something that knew Lily's voice. He kept the cruiser parked at the edge of Hollow Creek Road. Sometimes at night, he swore he heard footsteps in the snow. And sometimes, softly, almost like a prayer, he heard her whisper, He'll find us again.